Who is in the best 23 for the Bombers this year? It's going to be a pretty interesting one. The Zero Hanger team, they've made their call. We're going to break it down for you line by line. But before we do that, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. We have plenty of footy content coming out this year. But for now, Essendon, best 23. But before we get into it, don't forget that zerohanger.com is the #1 independent AFL news source for all your AFL news, trades, draft content, and now games. Check out our latest game, AFL Streakr. Test out your footy stats knowledge and see if you can get your name on the leaderboard. And here to break down Essendon's best 23 this year, we have Mitch Keating, AFL Chief Editor at Zero Hanger. Hey, mate.
Hey, good, mate. Yeah, excited. Bombers, always an interesting one.
Yeah, so Bombers fans will probably look at that list that they've currently got and would think that that's a top 8 list.
Yeah, well, their form pretty much up to the bye the last couple of seasons has suggested it's a list that can contend, but it's just having the legs and enough in the tank for that home stretch for them to be right up there or thereabouts.
Yeah, I'm not entirely convinced, but let's take a look at the best 23 and then maybe you can convince me.
Let's do it.
All right, so starting with the back line, we have Jordan Ridley, Ben Mackay, Andrew McGrath, Mason Redmond, Zach Reid, Archie Roberts. So obviously the interesting part there is the second key defensive spot.
Yeah, like Zach Reid started last year and then unfortunately had another setback and pretty much his whole year was on the sideline. So again, roll back the tape, start him again come opening round if he's ready to do so and pair him with Ben Mackay. I think that's a really nice balance. Then you've got Jordan Ridley right there as well, another one who needs to stay fit for Essendon to be a finals chance this year. So that's going to be a big focus. Jayden Laverde waiting in the wings and Lewis Hayes as well. I expect to be knocking on the door and hoping for a debut in 2025.
All right, so looking at the mids now, starting with obviously Sam Draper in the ruck, Zach Merritt, Sam Durham and Darcy Parish. And then on the wings, Xavier Dersma and Nick Martin. So interesting choices there, but actually not interesting, pretty set and forget. But Nick Martin on the wing after spending a year in defence.
Yeah, I think he comes back up the field a little bit more. Maybe it could be more inside, and you can always push Durham out. Jai Caldwell's on the bench. Ben Hobbs add him in as well. So they're nice and stacked in that section, and it's going to mean it's going to make for quite an interesting selection group when they didn't have Parish for a lot of last year, and that allowed Caldwell and Durham to really thrive. So now that they've kind of got all of them in the mix, assuming they're all fit, a lot of competition and at the same time a bit of a headache for the opposition midfield.
Yep. And obviously there's an absence there in Dylan Shield.
Yeah, he was, he's another one who's battled form and injury in the latter stages of his time with the Bombers. Came back last year after, winning back his spot after another injury absence and was one of their best really to finish the season. But I just don't think there's a spot for him in midfield. Trial him at halfback, see how he goes. But in saying that as well, I don't think he's a best 23 player for them.
All right, and looking at the forward line now, so Archie Perkins, Kyle Langford, Jade Gresham, and then Isaac Kako, Peter Wright, Nate Caddy. So an interesting forward line. I'm not entirely convinced about it. They do lose Jake Stringer. They add Kako. What are we thinking here?
Yeah, the tall forwards is going to be the focus. Now, we'll get to the smalls in a sec, but they need two of these talls to be kicking 40, and that's a lot for Nate Caddy, and I don't really think that is directed at Nate Caddy. This is directed at Langford and Peter Wright, who have both been 50 goal forwards over the last 3 or so seasons. So Langford's been solid and was solid once again to lead their goal kicking last year. Peter Wright is the one that needs to step up. And if it's not him, Harrison Jones is going to be waiting right there to try and prove himself as a starting piece. And then Nate Caddy, if they can get 20 goals, goal a game out of him and just see some good improvement from what they saw in his first season, that's going to be key. But yeah, Peter Wright is the one that really needs to lift. And it won't be too long for Brad Scott to make a change if he doesn't see what he likes.
Yep. And then obviously the inclusion of Isaac Kako as a small forward, really exciting stuff, but he comes straight in.
Yeah, well, it's been a list need for them. They lose Jake Stringer, 40 goal forward, not really the smaller type, but that energetic presence, very lively one. And Kako offers some defensive pressure as well as being that goal sneak for them. Matt Guelphy probably comes off the bench or can start in a forward pocket as well. So I think they're two complementary small forwards that should work really well with the tools they've got.
And rounding out the 23 with the bench, we have Jai Caldwell, Ben Hobbs, Matt Guelphy, Nick Cox, and then Asad El Hawley as the sub. So a couple of questions with those last two, Nick Cox and El Hawley.
Yeah, we'll start with the latter. El Hawley, VFL form, straight after joining Essendon midway through last year from the Northern Bullants, suggested he was going to be getting picked at some point late into the season before injury struck. I think he's the perfect type of sub. nice run, clean player, can play wing, can play forward, can play halfback, and he'll get it. He should be getting a debut pretty early into the season. Nick Cox, when we talk about question marks, certainly different ones compared to Al Hawley with what we should be expecting from Nick Cox and what kind of role is he going to play. Same, versatile, but they really need to lock him into a role that he knows he's going to be playing for most of the year. Is that the wing? Is that down back, or is that as a forward? Like, it's great to have a player like that who can play a lot of roles, but I think what's going to help him the most is just finding a role that he will know he's playing for most of the season, and that he can really grow that part of his game.
All right, so that is our best 23 for Essendon. It's an interesting list. It looks promising. I'm not convinced that it is a best that it's a final side just yet. One name that isn't there, probably stiff to miss a little bit, Elijah Sardis.
Well, he's one that Bombers fans want to be seeing in these kind of sides. They want to be getting 18 games out of him in this season, but at the same time, they want the same amount out of a Merritt, out of a Parrish, Martin, Durham, Caldwell, Hobbs, Perkins. Like this, it's a long list of midfielders in this pecking order, and Sardis is probably just that one that's missing out. Might not take too long for him to get a look back in. His VFL form's always been solid, but there's just areas of his game, maybe some of his distribution and decision making, which was a big part of why he got picked at pick 5. Like, he was very good for Oakley when with those certain attributes. So big year for him coming up if he can break in and hold a spot.
Yep, absolutely. All right, thank you for that, Mitch. It is a interesting best 23 as always for the Bombers. So let us know in the comments what you think. Did we pick the right team? Should there be some people in there that we maybe didn't include? There are people in there that shouldn't be in there. Essentially, that's
Happy to hear it.
Yeah, comment section. Be a dumpster fire if you want it to be. So let us know what you think. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and catch all the latest AFL news at zerohanger.com.